June 15, 2025, 4:17 a.m. The Sumy region of northeastern Ukraine was shrouded in pre-dawn darkness when Russia executed what they believed was a devastating surprise strike. 3 Iskander-M ballistic missiles, each carrying a 700-kilogram warhead, screamed through the Ukrainian sky at Mach 6, targeting a critical training facility of the 117th Territorial Defense Brigade located just 60 kilometers from the Russian border. The attack was surgical and brutal. The first missile struck the main barracks building, collapsing 2 floors and trapping dozens of sleeping soldiers beneath concrete and steel. The second missile found the communications center, severing all contact with Ukrainian high command. The third Iskander detonated in the vehicle depot, destroying 12 armored personnel carriers and sending flaming debris across the compound. 8 Ukrainian soldiers died instantly in the first strike. 19 others were critically wounded, including Senior Lieutenant Maxim Bondar, who suffered severe burns while pulling 3 soldiers from the burning wreckage. Emergency sirens wailed across the facility as thick black smoke rose into the morning sky, visible from Russian observation posts 15 kilometers away. If you want to see how modern military conflicts unfold, please subscribe to our channel for detailed analysis. In Moscow, Russian military command celebrated what they called Operation Dawn Thunder. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu personally congratulated the 448th Missile Brigade, believing they had eliminated a key Ukrainian training center that had been preparing territorial defense units for 3 months. Russian state media prepared victory announcements, with propaganda outlets claiming the strike had significantly degraded Ukrainian military capabilities. But Russia had made a catastrophic error in judgment. The facility they targeted wasn't just a regional training center. It was the primary coordination hub for Ukraine's new long-range drone operations program, housing the technical specialists who had been planning strikes deep into Russian territory for weeks. And at 4:23 a.m., exactly 6 minutes after the attack, an encrypted message reached the Ukrainian General Staff in Kyiv. President Volodymyr Zelensky's response was immediate and decisive. Standing in the presidential bunker, his voice was calm, but carried the weight of steel. They want to play with fire? We'll show them what fire really looks like. Within minutes, Operation Retribution began mobilizing assets that Russia never knew existed. The Ukrainian Security Service had been tracking Russian air assets at Morozovsk Air Base in Rostov Oblast for 2 months. This wasn't just any airfield. Intelligence confirmed it housed 24 Su-34 fighter bombers, 8 Tu-22M3 long-range bombers, and over 180,000 gallons of aviation fuel. The base also served as the primary launching point for Iskander missile strikes into Ukrainian territory, making it the perfect target for devastating retaliation. At 5:45 a.m., while Russian commanders still celebrated their successful strike, Ukrainian drone operators 200 kilometers away began the most ambitious deep strike operation in the war's history. The Ukrainian response was unlike anything Russia had seen before. Operation Retribution launched at exactly 6:12 a.m. with a coordinated swarm of 89 modified R-18 drones, each carrying a 40-kilogram high-explosive warhead and equipped with AI-guided targeting systems that could identify specific aircraft types from satellite imagery. The drones approached Morozovsk Air Base from 4 different vectors, flying at treetop level to avoid Russian radar detection. Lead operator Captain Oksana Kovalenko, working from a concealed command post in Poltava Oblast, coordinated the attack using real-time satellite feeds that showed every Russian aircraft parked on the tarmac. At 6:47 a.m., the first wave of Ukrainian drones struck the base's air defense systems. Pantsir S-1 and Tor M2 missile batteries were overwhelmed by the sheer number of incoming targets, managing to intercept only 12 drones before their tracking systems were destroyed by precision strikes. Russian radar operators watched helplessly as their screens went dark one by one. Phase 2 began immediately. 36 drones targeted the aircraft parking areas with surgical precision. The first explosions came in rapid succession as Ukrainian warheads found their marks. A Su-34 fighter bomber erupted in flames, its fuel tanks detonating with enough force to damage 2 adjacent aircraft. A Tu-22M3 strategic bomber, worth $42 million, was split in half by a direct hit that ignited its weapons payload. But the most devastating strike was yet to come. Ukrainian intelligence had identified the base's primary fuel depot, a massive underground complex containing 180,000 gallons of aviation fuel designed to supply operations for 3 months. Captain Kovalenko directed 24 drones toward the facility's ventilation shafts and access points. Russian base commander Colonel Alexei Markov ordered emergency procedures, but it was too late. The first drones penetrated the fuel depot's outer defenses at 7:03 a.m., followed by a coordinated strike that would create the largest explosion in the Rostov region since World War II. The initial detonation sent a pillar of fire 800 feet into the sky, visible from the International Space Station. The blast wave shattered windows in the nearby town of Morozovsk, 12 kilometers away. Secondary explosions continued for 18 minutes as stored ammunition and aircraft fuel created a chain reaction that consumed the entire eastern section of the airbase. Satellite imagery confirmed the scale of destruction. 14 aircraft completely destroyed, including 6 Su-34s and 3 Tu-22M3 bombers. The fuel depot was a smoking crater 150 feet across. The base's runway was cracked and unusable, effectively grounding all operations for months. Russian casualties were severe. Intelligence reports confirmed at least 47 military personnel killed, including Colonel Markov, who died attempting to coordinate evacuation procedures. The 559th Bomber Aviation Regiment lost most of its experienced pilots and ground crew in the inferno that followed the fuel depot explosion. Then Ukraine delivered the final blow that would echo across the Kremlin. The message to Tehran was unmistakable. America had responded to Iran's backstab with overwhelming force, turning their strategic naval asset into a monument of twisted steel and ash. But this was only the beginning of Operation Iron Thunder. At 4:45 a.m., as the fires at Bandar-e-Lenge continued to rage, Admiral Morrison received intelligence that changed everything. A Global Hawk surveillance drone detected unusual activity at Iran's backup naval facility at Bushehr, 120 miles northwest. Iranian Revolutionary Guard vessels were attempting to evacuate critical personnel and equipment before the Americans could strike again. "They're running," Morrison's intelligence officer reported. Satellite shows 3 Hendijan-class patrol boats loaded with what appears to be senior naval staff departing Bushehr harbor. The admiral's response was immediate and decisive. "Not on my watch. Expand the target list. I want every Iranian naval asset within 200 miles neutralized." Operation Iron Thunder entered its final phase at 5:12 a.m. The USS Stockdale and USS Higgins, positioned 45 nautical miles offshore, received firing coordinates for a coordinated Tomahawk cruise missile barrage. Each destroyer carried 90 BGM-109 Tomahawks in their vertical launch systems, precision weapons capable of striking targets 1,000 miles away with pinpoint accuracy. The launch sequence began with mechanical precision. Vertical launch cell covers snapped open in perfect synchronization. 48 Tomahawk missiles erupted from their tubes in controlled intervals, each one programmed with GPS coordinates for specific targets across Iran's southern naval infrastructure. The missiles climbed to 500 feet, then dropped to wave-skimming altitude, racing toward their targets at 550 mph. Meanwhile, the Abraham Lincoln had turned into the wind for one final sortie. 6 Fa-18F Super Hornets thundered off the deck, each armed with 4 AGM-158 JASSM cruise missiles. These weren't ordinary bombs. The Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff missiles carried 1,000-pound penetrating warheads designed to destroy hardened underground bunkers from 230 miles away. At Bushehr, Iranian radar operators detected the incoming Tomahawks with just 4 minutes warning. Air defense batteries scrambled to engage, but the missiles were flying too low and too fast. The port's 3 S-300 missile systems managed to lock onto only 2 targets before the barrage overwhelmed their tracking capabilities. The first Tomahawks struck at 5:47 a.m. The Bushehr Naval Command Center disappeared in a fireball that shattered windows 5 miles inland. 6 more missiles found the submarine construction facility, collapsing reinforced concrete walls that had taken 3 years to build. Fuel storage tanks erupted in sequence, creating a chain reaction of explosions that turned the harbor into an inferno. But the most spectacular destruction was reserved for Iran's crown jewel, the Bushehr submarine base's dry dock facility. This massive complex housed Iran's most advanced submarine program, including 2 nearly completed Fateh-class vessels worth $400 million each. The facility was built 40 feet underground, protected by layers of reinforced concrete and steel. The JSSM missiles arrived like thunder from the sky. Launched from 200 miles away, they had flown undetected beneath Iranian radar coverage until the final seconds. 12 penetrating warheads struck the dry dock complex within 30 seconds, punching through the concrete layers like paper. The underground facility became a tomb of twisted metal and collapsed steel beams. When the secondary explosions began, the earth shook for miles around. Stored torpedo fuel detonated in a chain reaction that lasted 4 minutes. The blast was so powerful, it created a seismic event measuring 2.8 on the Richter scale. Geologists in Kuwait detected the shockwaves 300 miles away. Iranian emergency response was paralyzed. The fires at 2 major ports consumed
what would soon
all
become one of many
resources.
in the intensifying Red Sea
Bushehr's harbor
conflict.
master
Bye for now.
reported that the port would be unusable for at least 2 years, assuming they could even begin reconstruction. The submarine program that Iran had spent 15 years developing was erased in 15 minutes. By 6:30 a.m., American reconnaissance confirmed the complete success of Operation Iron Thunder. Both major Iranian naval facilities lay in ruins. 6 submarines were confirmed destroyed, along with construction facilities for 12 more. Iran's Southern Fleet Command structure had been decapitated. Fuel reserves that would have lasted 6 months were burning in massive pyres visible from orbit. The human cost for Iran was staggering. Intelligence estimates put military casualties at over 300, including most of Iran's experienced submarine commanders. Admiral Salamat and his entire staff were confirmed dead. The Revolutionary Guard Navy's Southern Command had effectively ceased to exist. American losses remained at 0. Every aircraft returned safely to base. Every missile found its target. The coordinated strike had lasted less than 3 hours from first launch to final impact, but its effects would reshape naval power in the Persian Gulf for decades. In Tehran, the silence was deafening. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei's office issued no statements. State media went dark on military topics. The Revolutionary Guard's usual threats and boasts were replaced by complete radio silence. For the first time in decades, Iran had been struck with such overwhelming force that even propaganda could not spin it as victory. Admiral Morrison's final message to the Pentagon was characteristically brief. Mission accomplished. Iranian naval threat neutralized. All personnel accounted for, returning to station. The fires would burn for weeks, but the message was already clear across the Middle East. The United States Navy doesn't start fights, but it always finishes them. Iran had learned this lesson in the most devastating way possible. watching their entire southern naval capability disappear in a sea of fire.